Episode 18, Wrong Side of the Pond podcast. I'm Jerry Lance, he's DJ Schweitzer, and it's the eve of the big day here in Ohio.
What day is that?
Tomorrow, New Belgium Brewing, Fat Tire, and other beers make their debut on the shelves here in Ohio.
Wow, that is
Long
actually a
time
really
coming.
big day.
If you don't know, obviously if you're not a big beer person, New Belgium Brewing out of, I believe, Fort Collins, Colorado.
They are. I actually wrote a paper on them in college.
You wrote a paper on a brewery? And what class was that for?
It's some business class.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Pick your own topic. Like, I may as well write about a brewery. So that was pretty interesting. I could tell you all about it if you really want me to get into it. But we'd probably just rather talk about the beer.
One of the few breweries run by a woman.
Yeah, that's true. They also run a completely carbon-neutral plant.
Yeah.
So their entire brewery is pretty green.
But they finally, after years of having to make some kind of like bootlegger run across the border to Indiana, Fat Tire will hit the shelf tomorrow.
Well, that sounds delicious.
So by the time you're listening to this, you're probably, if you live in Ohio.
You might be enjoying one already.
I know I will.
Yeah.
Speaking of enjoying, I felt bad. Obviously, there's wasn't a good day for you.
No. But you were good enough to understand that I would be hurting.
I knew you were hurting.
Yeah.
You told me that you fell asleep because you were so depressed and bummed out.
Yeah, I just climbed
your body
back.
Just collapsed.
I climbed back into bed, just like I'll sleep this off and I'll wake up and this won't have happened.
Well, you might have to sleep this off as well.
Yeah. Well, I probably will.
Brought some the Bullet Bourbon 10-year.
Yeah.
So we got a little glass of that going tonight. So.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
So yeah, just kind of just wanted to perk you up a little bit. I know it was kind of a rough day for you. It is Sunday evening, and we're watching the Cincinnati Bengals just crap themselves in Pittsburgh right now. So big EPL week, some pretty big matchups.
Yeah, there were a lot of big games this weekend.
We also had Champions League this past week.
Yeah.
We finally wrapped up the group stages. We know who our 16 teams will be. We will find the matchups Monday.
Yeah.
So you already know what the matchups are.
The big draw.
We'll kind of look at, as a Chelsea supporter, I can kind of say what I want to happen, who I want to get. Obviously, there's, just like any draw, those you want and those you want to avoid.
Yes.
So we'll kind of talk about that a little bit. Also, Capital One Cup this week.
Excitement.
The quarterfinal. We'll take a passing glance at that.
Hey, for some clubs, it's a trophy, and it could be important.
A trophy is a trophy.
Yeah, that could be important for some teams.
Always tell yourself.
I don't know.
Trophy.
I don't know what club I could be referring to.
I can't imagine of the 8 teams left there. Yeah.
No.
Which one?
One of them.
And then we also we have, of course, your questions. And kind of a big week for the MLS. A lot of moving and shaking.
Yeah, stuff's starting to happen.
So
you thought the season was done. It's not.
Well, it's kind of like baseball always calls it. It's the off season, the hot stove. I guess we have the MLS hot stove action.
Yeah,
going on.
Whoever thought we would have a hot stove for soccer in this country?
MLS hot stove.
Yeah, I can't wait until we are on AM radio talking about this.
Let's just get right into it. EPL weekend, a good weekend, and it got started bright and early Saturday with, if you're a fan of goals.
Goalfest, 9 goals between Man City and Arsenal.
Man City 6, Arsenal 3.
I enjoyed the start to the weekend, and maybe that was a really bad karmic sign that things were going to go really poor for me for the rest of the weekend. So
you relished the...
But for a few sweet hours, I relished the fact that Man City really just ripped apart an Arsenal side. Now, credit to Arsenal. They were, persistently a nuisance to Man City, throughout the course of the game. It wasn't exactly like City ran away with it.
Yeah, it was a weird match where it wasn't, for giving up 6 goals, it wasn't like Arsenal was just completely just blown off the pitch.
No, they weren't. Now, at times, they looked like they were.
Absolutely. Sergio Aguero got things started off. I guess he was still wiping the sleep out of his eyes. He waited until the 14th minute to score. Last 2 weeks, he had one inside of 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That was kind of becoming his thing.
I was a little worried that, he wasn't going to score at all. And then he finally got around to it a little bit later.
But then later, he gets hurt.
Yeah, he did.
That's not
pulled up.
good.
Looked like it was either a hamstring or a calf. He came out on Twitter afterward and kind of said, well, he's going to be out for a little while. So
yeah,
serious stuff.
A little time I'll be out there.
Yeah.
Walcott with a brace.
Yeah. People were starting to compare him to Henry. I don't know. Does that drive you crazy? Because I feel like that drives me crazy.
I mean, what is the basic? Outside of the fact that they are black men who played for Arsenal.
Yeah, they both wear 14.
Oh.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, I don't know too much about that one.
So, I mean, the second goal, credit to Walcott, was actually really nice. The first one was kind of scrappy. He was in the right spot at the right time. Good finish. But the second goal that he had was a great curler to level things up and pull Arsenal back into the match.
Yeah, at that point, it was 3-2, and you're thinking, this is going to be a barn burner.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like throughout the course of the game, it had pretty much been end to end, both sides kind of running at one another, and City being a little bit more effective at it than Arsenal had. But that second goal from Walcott was actually pretty Henry-esque, and I'll give them that. But it drives me crazy when people start to compare him to Henry.
I think people are just too prone to make any kind of comparison. I mean, just it's across the board. I mean, we were talking about the other week about people making Bale comparisons with Ramsey. I mean, everybody wants to compare the current guy to the guy who was just there.
Right.
And you're right. It's very frustrating.
Yeah. So, I mean, I get it. He's a good player. But I think it's a little off, stylistically even, to compare him to Henry. But,
oh, yeah.
If it had been Henry, he probably would have dragged him back into the game.
Hey, speaking of Henry, apparently he, over this weekend, blossomed into a broadcasting superstar.
Yeah, he was making quite a few appearances on the television.
Going to be a bidding war between the coverage holders over in the UK, they say, already, as soon as he's won there. But BT Sport and Sky are going to be dueling to see who will get his commentating prowess.
Can't imagine he wouldn't be a little opinionated.
I mean, he is a Frenchman.
Yeah. So he'll definitely have strong opinions. Thinks highly of himself, those kind of things.
Some of the kind of nuances of the match. First of all, I have to point out, and I tweeted out a picture of this, a screen cap of this. When Bentner gets put on, just the dejection on Twitter, in the stands, of
Arsenal supporters.
I got a great shot of one guy just kind of holding up his arms like, oh.
Oh, great. But then, I don't know if you saw the gif of it afterward. He kind of was like, oh, great, and then started.
He does like this.
He's like, well, all right, okay, we got to get behind the team.
Yeah, we'll do this.
You felt bad for him a little bit, and Danish Samurai coming on to try to save your evening.
What is he doing with that thing?
Didn't really work out this time, but overall, it's kind of hard to fight against a City team that is just dumping in goals at home.
Sure.
Right? They have 35 goals at home so far this season in the league. There are only 2 teams in the entire Premier League that have that many goals all season long, so home and away. So it's kind of, a tough task to actually compete against City on their home ground.
I don't know if you saw this here. I know you're drinking right now, but Koscielny, he had a bit of a of a dust up.
It's a big gash on his knee.
Showing him the picture right now.
Yeah.
It has surfaced. I actually have already seen the ones where people have kind of photoshopped in a face.
Yeah.
And used the gash as the mouth.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a mouth or a tongue hanging out, It's a pretty nasty gash on Koscielny's knee.
It's a brutal one.
Yeah, so he's going to be out for a few weeks, and that's something that may, be an issue for the Gunners.
Sure. But, for the Gunners, though, that doesn't seem to be the big thing everyone was talking about.
No.
It was what happened right at the end of the match.
Yeah, so
everyone talking.
So there were a couple little flare-ups, because it wasn't just the end of the match. The end of the match is definitely the bigger talking point.
The end of the match is the one that's got the gifts and everyone's.
Yeah, but in game even, Jack Wilshere throwing the bird to the Man City fans.
Yeah, probably going to see some disciplinary action.
Yeah, you would hope, and if they don't, Luis Suarez starts to look just a little bit nicer. Because that guy definitely got a suspension based off of flipping the bird to the fan. So you would hope that an English kid's going to get the same type of punishment. If he doesn't, maybe we can wag our fingers at the FA a little bit more.
Wag our middle fingers?
Well, that's what Wilshere would do.
All right.
After he is done smoking his cigarette.
I think it was you that tweeted out that that's what he was actually doing, just saying how many he's going to need.
I need one cigarette after this match because it's been brutal.
Somebody get this ready for me.
Yeah, someone get that fag ready for me.
But the other gif, the other talking point from the end of the match, Per Mertesacker just laying into Ozil.
Yeah, he really did go over and berate him.
There's another finger wagging.
Yeah. Well, you know how Germans are. I mean, look at Jurgen Klopp, also a pretty terrifying man. Yeah. It just seems like Germans like to yell at one another.
It seems to be everything movies have told me. Yeah. Germans kind of freak out on each other.
Well, he's like the big friendly giant, you know. Mertesacker looks just like a Roald Dahl character. And he absolutely came over and lit Ozil up for not going over and clapping the away support.
Sure, yeah. I think it might have been the Men in Blazers tweeted out a meme with that picture, and it just said, to someone's perspective, yeah, I know we're all scared of Klinsmann and the U.S., but you don't have to keep whining about it.
Yeah, one can hope that's what they were yelling about. They're already shaking in their boots at the prospects of playing us in Brazil next summer.
That's exactly what it is.
So look forward to that.
But pretty big ramifications. Obviously, City just keep pouring in the goals.
Yeah.
And then Arsenal, of course, that top of the table lead is slipping away rapidly. In fact, it could be gone by just over a week from now.
It absolutely could. There's a big match coming up for them in the next round of fixtures.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, we're getting into that winter time.
Mm-hmm.
Schedule starts to clog up a bit.
Yeah, a lot of matches start to pile up for you.
This is when things often take that turn.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a time that really does test teams that are capable of winning trophies. Not to say that Arsenal still can't do that, but we've been talking for a couple weeks now about how a few of their players in particular are starting to look a little tired. Giroud, who definitely throughout this game looked really gassed.
How many chances did he have, though?
He had a lot of, clear-cut opportunities.
I mean, just pissed away chance after chance.
So, I mean, he looked tired, and, at a couple times looked like he may have, pulled up injured, too. So, Wilshere, another player that looked tired, maybe that added to his frustration and made him, decide to raise one up for the home support. So, maybe this is starting to seep into them. We'll talk a little bit about this more later, but they lost in the midweek as well. So it's not like they've been on a string of really good results. And we've even talked about them kind of scraping through the last few matches. So I think Wenger's got a little bit of an issue on his hand.
Things don't get easier for them.
No.
Because they have the juggernauts sort of coming in next week. Chelsea, Arsenal. Winner is on top.
Yeah.
Liverpool might share a little bit of that.
Yeah, that's true.
They can share with Chelsea, but the winner is going to have a share of
the top of the table, which is interesting. The thing I really like about it is the return of the Wenger-Mourinho relationship.
It is. We got to see a little bit of it in Capital One Cup. They faced off. It was sort of a weird incident at the beginning of the match where I think it was Mourinho was kind of sitting there at the tunnel, waiting for Wenger to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And then they did, and they kind of shook hands, and it was like, oh, yeah, sorry. And then they just shot the other direction.
Like awkward teenagers, that are into each other in middle school.
Hey, we should say hi to each other.
Hey. Okay, I'm going back to my bench.
Speaking of Chelsea. Chelsea 2, mighty Crystal Palace 1.
Yeah. Shaking in your boots a little bit?
I was trolling my own team during this. I tweeted out when Torres put that opener in. Oh, my goodness. Torres just scored against the 19th best team in the league. He's back.
Yep.
Which is something that Chelsea fans do legitimately shout out every time he scores. Oh, he's back. Now he's back.
He's back.
This
is
back
it.
now.
This is it. It's the old Torres.
There he is.
Yeah.
Never mind, it was just a gimme rebounder against the 19th best team in the league.
Yeah, but those are the type of goals that, as you sit here and take a drink, to Suarez finally getting back on the tally. He's back.
He's at it.
At least that's what that drink's telling you. But no, it's the type of goal that you want to see a striker scoring. You know,
it was fantastic reaction from him.
Right.
He was right there, pounced on it.
Poacher's goal, they say.
Yep.
Fox in the box, and Torres used to score a lot of goals like that, and he's been unlucky to not have a few of those go in over the last couple of years. Been denied by some excellent saves and some really, crap taken opportunities on his behalf.
He's also shot it straight up in the air a couple of times too.
So, but good for him. I thought he played pretty well overall. So, back in the goals, maybe he is back. At least that's what you guys all tell yourselves.
Yeah, I'd pump the brakes on that one.
Mm-hmm.
And Chelsea had to pump the brakes too. Shamak getting on with the equalizer there.
Dude's in a good run of form at the moment.
Hey, they started the he scores when he wants to chant going right after he slotted that one in. Nervy times for Chelsea against an opponent they should not be struggling against.
No.
But it happened again. Luckily, Ramirez
bailed you guys out.
Bailed us out. And most importantly, Jose Mourinho stayed for the entire first half.
That's pretty impressive.
He hasn't done that in well over a month.
Usually ducks into the tunnel, before the whistle's even been blown.
He sees the stoppage time. He goes 3 minutes. Cool. I'm
going to go inside.
Yeah, I'm going to piss and start figuring out what I'm going to shout at these morons.
Yeah.
He stayed for the whole thing. I was pretty excited about that. Another thing, I guess Mata's the guy now because he's
been
in
starting
again, and he was fantastic. They had to sub him out because he was just out of breath. He was everywhere on that field.
He really was, and I thought he played, really well.
Mm-hmm.
He's finally, I think it's been a turning point for Mata where he's actually embraced what Mourinho was saying at the beginning of the year. Mourinho was kind of saying, he just isn't able to play the system that we're trying to play.
Yeah.
And you can tell in his game now he plays a lot more defensively than he used to.
He plays a lot deeper. Yeah.
And hangs back a lot more than he ever used to.
Mm-hmm.
And has been a lot more selective in his opportunities to break forward. So it's a different Juan Mata. I don't think he's quite as enjoyable as he once was to watch. But it is good to see him back in the lineup because I think they're a better team with him in.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk about who fits the system, who doesn't kind of thing. But, I mean, when you have a guy like Juan Mata, as good as he is, you got to put him on the field.
Yeah.
And but you have to make it work, but it was wasted talent there on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
And, in fact, some of the times he wasn't even on the bench.
Well, I mean, we could talk for days about the wasted talent on Chelsea's bench.
Well, no.
I mean, Kevin De Bruyne's not even been on it at all lately.
No.
So
yeah, he's pretty thrilled with that too.
Yeah.
Chelsea though, and we'll talk about it with Liverpool as well. Just 2 back.
Yes.
So Chelsea have a tough stretch though coming up. We talked about Arsenal on Monday. Then of course, next week we got kind of that double dip again because you have the Boxing Day matches.
Right.
So we'll have both of those to look forward to. We have the weekend and then the Thursday matchups. They will be hosting Swansea. Then it's Liverpool at the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Southampton after that. Of course, then we get into January where FA Cup fires up. Not soon after that, they have, of course, Champions League. And before they get to that, they will have to play United and City again.
Wow.
And they'll actually have to go to the Etihad.
Yeah.
Which is
definitely a beating ground for anyone that steps in there.
Desirable task.
Yeah. So, that's clearly a difficult run of games.
How about this, though? Palace, last week we talked about, got 6 points on the week, didn't move. They lose this week. They're in 18th.
That's just the way the breaks go,
Yeah. Figure that one out. They move because this team is terrible. Everton 4, Fulham 1.
Well, thank God Berbatov was there with his silky smooth
That's right.
penalty-taking skills. Otherwise, Fulham would be completely abject.
I will have to say, though, this game, though, was a lot closer than the score says because the last, the go-ahead goal and then the two just extra fun goals happened pretty late in the match.
Yeah,
I think it was the 73rd minute was the go-ahead.
Yes, it was. So, I mean, Everton definitely left it until late to actually, steal all 3 points in this match. the bigger news was kind of injuries for them. Delafeu, who's been so good for them.
Yeah, he goes down.
Went down with a hamstring injury, and they're expecting him to be out for at least a couple weeks. So that's definitely a bit of a blow for them.
The Jerry D fever.
Yeah.
Kind of on hiatus for a few weeks.
Just for a little bit.
It was interesting, though, because you look at that score sheet, and it wasn't these big guys. It wasn't, obviously it wasn't Lukaku. It wasn't Jerry D.
Right.
It was Barry, Coleman, and Osman.
Yep. Heavyweights.
Yeah. Goal-scoring prowess.
Yeah, I mean, not exactly the places you would expect the goals to come from in this side. Morales did get, obviously, the late insurance goal in there.
I didn't add him in. He is a guy that does score goals.
He does score goals from time to time when not blading people down. But Everton, again, proving that they're a team that's capable of picking up 3 points in tough situations.
Yeah.
So maybe they are pretty for real and are going to sit up there and challenge for the top 4. Definitely looking better than another side that was supposed to do that. But we'll wait to talk.
Well, we are burying that to where you'll have hopefully a good percentage of this bourbon in your body, warming the cockles.
I'm already feeling a little bit more loose, so just get ready.
Everton is in the Europa spot. They're in 5th place currently.
Yes, they are.
The rest of Saturday was not amazing.
No. So we had all these high-firing games, early in the morning.
Yeah.
Made for really enjoyable watching. Even if you were neutral and had no stake in any of the matches, you enjoyed your football on Saturday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Saturday afternoon's highlight match was Hull City hosting Stoke City. And it was every bit as atrocious as you might expect.
That's like going to a concert. That's like going to a police concert, and the police open for, like, the Starting Line or just some god-awful pop-punk band.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely a dull affair. I will say in the second half it warmed up a bit and turned into a bit of a goalkeeping duel where there were a couple really nice saves on either end of the field. But other than that, it was a pretty abysmal match.
Yeah, I literally have nothing on. Breck Shea, nowhere to be found again.
Yep.
Just missing
not even on the bench.
Nope. But yeah, horrible. Because you got to think, this is literally like prime time Saturday evening viewing.
Right.
Over in the UK.
You're really not going to get a better opportunity to put Breck Shea in the shop window.
You sit down, you get your boys together, you sit down, you go to the bar.
Mm-hmm.
Let's watch this match, guys. What do we got on tonight? Hull and Stoke.
Right. So we always talk about, like Free Breck and his trouble getting on the field at Stoke. He's not the only American that's actually really struggling to get on the field at Stoke. Another guy that's rarely even made game day benches this year, Maurice Edu, is also at Stoke.
Yeah, he is still technically part of that organization.
He's like the forgotten U.S. player.
He wishes he had. I mean, Breck Shea has at least seen the field and been on it a time or two.
Yeah.
I don't think Edu's even been on the bench yet.
You would think he's probably playing in reserve matches, and I did not do my homework to find out if he has been, but let's just assume that he's been playing in some.
All those Edu fans that want to help us solve that mystery,
tweet us.
Tweet us.
Let us know, because we'd love to know if he's seeing any time at all. But no, Stoke definitely didn't look like they could have at least used a little bit of help from someone like Breck.
Some other lamers, West Ham, Sunderland, 0-0 draw. Josie did get the start, so there's always that. Nothing became of that.
No, he missed a bit of a sitter. I saw that in the highlights.
I did see
I'll admit
that.
I didn't watch that.
Norwich, Swansea, 1-1 affair.
Yeah.
Your boy Hooper.
Gary Hooper getting on the board again. Dyer was also the one who opened the scoring for Swansea. He then proceeded to have his ankle shattered in the second half by an awkward landing. So
you're not going to want that.
Looks like he'll probably be out for a little while. So
I want to go to Newcastle, Southampton real quick. That one ended in a bit of a tizzy.
Yeah, there were a few little shoves, little kickouts happening.
It was kind of we see it in a lot of American sports, especially baseball. The bench clearing brawl.
Right.
And that's kind of what we had here. Like, the bench is kind of emptied out.
So I'm trying to think of the last time I even saw, like, a bench clearing brawl
where you
happen.
where you got the training staff, the manager, everyone up and
everyone up and trying to separate things. I think the last one was probably when Mourinho actually poked then assistant coach of Barcelona, Tito Villanova, in the eye.
I still contend he was going for the wet willy.
I think
And he just jerked at the last
and
moment.
he came out of left field and just
kinda came over and
jabbed him and then walked away he was like, well, that's all I was doing.
Hands in pocket,
Yep, wasn't
collar
me.
to the wind,
And then he
rolled
took
out.
off. Yeah. Of course, there was always that creepy guy in the mustache that was in the background of every picture, just aimlessly staring on.
I mean,
absent this time.
We're talking about Spain. Isn't there always a creepy man in a mustache everywhere in Spain?
Pretty much.
It was actually a really funny point during this dust-up here between Newcastle and Southampton where, the security guy on hand, one of the guys in the orange vest, on hand on the field, he grabbed one of the coaches for Newcastle, and he was kind of trying to pull him, and I think, we didn't hear, there was no audio to this, but it was almost like the exchange was he didn't realize who the guy was, and he was trying to remove him from the pitch. And the guy literally starts pointing at his Newcastle badge no, idiot.
I'm allowed to be fighting here.
I'm on the coaching staff, you boob.
Yeah.
Get your hands off of me.
I missed that one.
Jay Rodriguez gets the equalizer there as Southampton. We talked about Newcastle quietly climbing, which they've plateaued a little bit. But on the other side of that, Southampton quietly just plummeting.
Yeah. They've had a bad couple weeks, a couple draws, really.
They have not won in their last 5 matches.
Yeah, so maybe the magic's fallen out of Pochettino's men.
And they're down into 9th as we stand right now.
They've struggled to score the goals that they were scoring earlier this year. I think that's been a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
They've been a little bit more leaky in the back than they had been as well. So they went through a really tough stretch. I think this was the last really tough one that they'll have for a little while. I'll probably be proven wrong with that. But that said, maybe they're feeling a little deflated.
The last match from Saturday, and I saved this to the end just because it has more of a story to it than some of the other stinkers from the week. Cardiff won, West Brom 0, and it saw the end of the Steve Clark tenure.
Yep. So Steve Clark was the next manager to have his head chopped in the Premier League. Probably a little bit of a victim of his own success, I would imagine. Last year he had West Brom all the way up in 8th.
Sure.
So a pretty respectable finish. Maybe
you could say it's somewhat a victim of Roy Hodgson's success.
Yeah.
I mean, remember, he took over for Hodgson, kind of just bailed because he got the national team gig, and West Brom was playing well enough for him to get that call to be the manager anyways. So,
right.
Yeah, they were flying high there for a while.
Yeah, so, I think expectations were high again. They maybe thought spend a little bit of money this year, bring in a few players that maybe we'll be able to, push on into maybe some European places. And unfortunately, after the way results have gone in this season, Clark has them hovering right above the relegation zone. So it's really, an unfortunate firing. I think one of those examples of a club probably reacting a little too quickly to a current situation. But at the same time, anymore, it's important to stay in the Premier League. And if you get relegated, it could be a really tough time getting back up. So you can see why the club may go ahead and pull the trigger there.
Yeah, and obviously then kind of opens the Pandora's box of who's the new manager at West Brom.
Right.
And, of course, at least here stateside, an interesting name has rolled into the fold.
Mr. Bob Bradley.
Well, and it's somewhat legitimate, this his name being thrown in there, as Roger Bennett of the Men in Blazers and ESPN reported. Bob Bradley did actually interview for this job before Clark took it.
Did he?
Yeah.
Well, another interesting fact is Bob Bradley actually was in some talks with Vancouver Whitecaps to possibly take over their vacant manager's position.
And he bailed out.
Yeah. He actually
hit the eject button there.
Actually publicly came out and said, hey, we talked to him, and it's just not something that we're looking for, and that his next move was going to be into Europe. So maybe Mr. Bradley received some notice from the chairman of West Brom saying, hey, we may have
still have
vacant
your resume on file.
Yeah, and we may have a vacant opportunity here for you to fill. So it could very well be a position that we could see Bradley in.
Yeah.
I think it would be a really big move to fire a manager who has had success in the Premier League and bring in an unproven, to this point, American coach in the club game in Europe. So it would show some balls on West Brom's part, but maybe they could, earn themselves a good number of American fans, something they've lacked and would probably like to crack into this audience with a big move with Bob Bradley. So
yesterday evening, Roger Bennett posted, he tweeted out, Bob Bradley told me he interviewed for West Brom job before it was given to Steve Clark. I know that Bradley was mentioned with some unpronounceable Norwegian team. Mm-hmm. I think is the way you pronounce it.
Yeah.
When I heard that, I was like, well, that sounds about right. I mean,
yeah, I wasn't expecting him to really land in the Premier League. We talked before maybe a championship job would be good for him, or perhaps somewhere in Holland. Or maybe even Belgium would be a good place for him to get his feet wet in Europe.
Championship jobs are somewhat volatile, though. I mean, those are a little more cutthroat, I think.
Yeah, they are.
Than maybe going to the Norwegian league or whatever.
Right, where you'll get a little bit more patience out of the club. So I think this would be a little bit more high pressure, obviously, than even the championship would be. If it would be an opportunity Bradley would get, I think it would be a fascinating storyline and something that's obviously going to make me pay attention a little bit more to the team. I mean, and maybe that's what they want if they were to make that kind of move. But to this point, that's just speculation.
And it would be a landmark move in the history of American soccer.
Oh, yeah.
Of a American manager in the Premier League.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge step.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll admit I was a bit of a Bradley basher back in the day. I wasn't really happy with the way he managed the national team, especially towards the end of his spell.
Even there in 2010?
Yeah.
Oh, I did a radio interview with Eddie Gavin, and he played for Bradley, and it was right around the World Cup. It was, I think, right after the World, or at least the U.S.'s participation in the World Cup.
Right.
And I asked him, I was like, is there any reason Bob Bradley should still be back? And Eddie was like he was kind of taken aback that I was just going to be like,
putting him out
there. But, I mean, yeah, there was a lot of people that were not impressed with Bradley at certain points.
Yeah, but I think his spell, and we've gone off on a tangent from West Brom to what we expect.
That's fine.
To
we have nothing else. It was a light week.
Compared to last week, we have ample time.
We have two other matches, and then we're done.
But I think it is something. I feel like I fell a little bit in love with Bob Bradley and his story with him moving off to Egypt, and it kind of opened my eyes a little bit to maybe his willingness to accept a big challenge. Egypt is a national team that's had a lot of success on their continent, but struggles to make it even to the big world stage.
Right. I mean, just taking on that job during this time in Egypt's history. I mean, this is a volatile time, politically and nationally for that country.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it says a lot about a guy's character that he'd be willing to take on a job like that and had moderate success with them. They did trip up and, didn't qualify for the World Cup, but I think he is a guy that's earned a shot in Europe. Whether West Brom is a little bit too big of a step, that remains to be seen. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know how much to make of it. I mean, nothing's been said yet as far as him and the current vacancy there, but definitely, it's interesting to see his name thrown out there with an actual legitimate, kind of story to it that he actually has interviewed for this job already.
Right. So we'll see. Let's cross our fingers.
Yeah.
Hope for Bob.
All right, let's move to Sunday. We had a few matches. That Norwich Swansea game was Sunday, but it doesn't matter when it took place. It was crap.
It was pretty uneventful.
One match that was a little eventful this morning. Aston Villa, boy, looked good early, but they lose 3-0
at home
to Manchester United. United needed that win.
Yeah, they really did.
Really needed that win.
Yeah, they needed that one badly after a couple really poor results in the Premier League for them. They needed to kind of come out and trounce a team. And after absorbing some early pressure from Villa, they open up the scoring with a pair of Welbeck goals.
Yep. It's the
just
early
minutes apart. Yeah. So it was weird. United, clearly a 3-0 scoreline makes it sound like they dominated, and they did. But this game, as odd as it is with them winning a match 3-0, kind of explains why they struggle against the better sides.
Well, it definitely looked like we were going down that same path early on in the match. Like it looked like, oof, boy, once again, United just kind of just starting a little sluggish,
a little shaky in the back.
Yeah, not finding their feet. But yeah, they pull it out, and again, it's something they definitely needed.
Yeah, I think what this game kind of exposed is we got to see it kind of in slower motion than we do against the bigger sides when United plays them. Is Rooney has really been forced, especially in Van Persie's absence, to drop way deep into the midfield and to create. And he's almost been playing a Paul Scholes-esque midfield role, hitting long diagonal balls and making probing passes deep from the midfield. And that leaves United a little short up top for really creative, top-class players. And credit Welbeck. He had 2 goals today, probably his better performance that he's had in a while. But it really shows why, someone like Danny Welbeck isn't going to be able to do that against a Chelsea or an Arsenal or a Manchester City. And without without Rooney up there to kind of spearhead that attack, they're really lacking. So against a team like Aston Villa, they're able to make that happen and make that work. But against better sides, they're really going to need someone like Rooney a little bit closer to goal. So I thought it was interesting that kind of showed its face during today's good performance for United.
All right. It's time.
Okay.
Tottenham 0. Liverpool. I'll let you say it.
Yeah, it was 5.
Okay.
Yeah, before I get this, I'm gonna actually take a
good hit off.
A good hit off this delicious bourbon.
It's the Bullet Bourbon, 10-year reserve.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, that warms it up a little bit.
Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. That's where that's. Not too far from here.
Made the short trip up here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks. So,
Suarez had a brace.
Spurs, again, just look completely uninspired.
I mean, we talked about this for a while now. They're toothless.
Yeah. There's really no cohesion to what they're doing or any confidence in what they're doing. I mean, if there is a set plan of attack that they're trying to follow, I'm lacking or struggling to see what it is. Really, Soldado, for the most part, has been on an island, and they did show some glimpses today after the first Liverpool goal. Spurs really pressed on and had a couple good opportunities that they squandered. But it was a couple times, and the goals that they let in early were all off of turnovers. I mean, turnovers were I put this on my notes today. I actually put it in all capitals, bolded it, and underlined it. Turnovers cost Spurs tremendously today. And once they started leaking those goals, and in particular after the red card, which we can talk about here in a couple minutes.
Really? I thought you were just going to breeze past that.
I thought about it. But after the red card, they just look like they gave up. And today was the first time where the AVB out shouts found a little resonation in me. Like I was able to kind of feel it a little bit.
Now, I know on Twitter you were kind of bantering about AVB out, sure, but there has to be a answer to who's in.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just fire the guy and it fixes everything. No, you have to have a manager you're going to bring in. And I wrote,
it's Tottenham. You can't just. We're not just going to do some battlefield promotion from one of the assistants and first team coaches.
Yeah, they're talking about Tim Sherwood, who's in charge of the youth academy at Spurs and a great former player. stepping in if AVB were to be relieved of his duties. And that's clearly not enough for a club like Spurs, and they would have to bring in a name. I mean, a known quantity at bare minimum.
So who are the names that are being thrown out?
Yeah. So I asked Twitter. I said, Twitter, you tell me.
Yeah.
Who are your viable solutions? And these are people that you think can come in, realistically come in, and actually make a difference. Improve our current run of form. So the first name that everyone sprung to today was because there was a man in the building. Fabio Capello, former England manager, former Real Madrid, Juventus, manager pretty much everywhere.
I believe he was at the Chelsea match as well.
Yeah.
The day before.
Was at the match. So obviously everyone jumped to the conclusion that, Daniel Levy must have brought him in. That's his plan B, and he's just showing him the ropes before he hands him the job after today's horrid performance. And that's one where I just go, well, he is actually the coach of Russia. And Russia, whether you believe it or not, has qualified for the World Cup. So it seems pretty unlikely, barring an England-esque meltdown, and we have seen Capello quit right before a major tournament before.
That's true.
So it wouldn't be beyond him. But I think it's pretty unlikely that we're going to see Fabio Capello taking the reins at Spurs anytime soon. So Capello, no.
Capello, unrealistic because of he's got a pretty solid thing going already.
Right.
It would be ridiculous for him to jump ship right before a World Cup.
Right.
What are the other names?
Other names that were thrown out, a very similar situation to Capello was Jurgen Klinsmann, our own national team coach.
He did play for Spurs.
He did play for Spurs, has long admitted to being a fan of the club and said he would like to manage there at some point.
I'm sure there'll be more opportunities.
There will probably other opportunities for him, not to mention that he just signed a new extension with U.S. Soccer this week.
Yeah, and again, another guy, he's kind of got a good thing going, and you're not going to leave the national team right before a World Cup.
Right. Yeah, and there were a few, I'm going to call you dumbass fans that suggested him,
pretty much what
saying he could do both. So if you are thinking that a national team manager could actually coach a Premier League club at the same time.
It's one thing when the fat guy from Club America does it because it's literally the same players he's dealing with.
Right. So
it's easy for him to coach Mexico and Club America because it's half of the roster is the same dudes.
Yeah. So coaching on different continents, not really possible.
No,
so let's toss
that's kind
him
of a
out.
different thing.
Some of the other names that were tossed around, former Spurs manager and player Glenn Hoddle.
Okay.
Definitely tossed around a lot.
So a retread.
Yeah, so a retread, going back to someone who knows Spurs. That's what a lot of the fans were going to. He knows the Spurs way.
What does that mean?
Yeah, he knows our ethos.
That's like going, the Wolverines, we're only going to hire a Michigan man.
Well, I mean, it's like Liverpool always going back to Kenny Dalglish.
Yeah. I'm sure he's getting another run in him.
Yeah, it's comfortable. We know what we're getting with Kenny. Problem is, Hoddle hasn't managed since 2006. Getting on in years. His last spell in charge was with a really ill-fated run with Wolves. So if you can't do it with Wolves, I'm sure your next step, 7 years down the road is to pick it right up with a team that has Champions League ambitions. So that seems pretty likely.
It's a natural fit.
Yeah. Some other names that were thrown out, Ledley King, Spurs legend, another guy that recently retired. I just want to remind everyone, Ledley doesn't have his coaching badges, so that's pretty unlikely.
Yeah, a little bit of work to be done on that one.
Some realistic names I think that were thrown out.
Okay.
But, one was Michael Laudrup, manager at Swansea, plays attractive football. So
Swansea not exactly lighting the world on fire right now.
No,
not exactly.
Not quite reaching the heights that they had. But he did just sign a contract extension with Swansea not long ago. So Daniel Levy's not really a fan of paying buyout clauses. So just so you know, that seems pretty unlikely. Other ones that I thought were kind of interesting, Pochettino from Southampton, also kind of in a little bit of a downswing. But I don't know that they would want to go that direction. So those seem a little bit more realistic. The one that everyone always goes to is Redknapp.
Sure.
And I just no. I mean, it seems there are a lot of fans that really want that one, that never wanted him to leave in the first place. But I just don't think that's the right move. Everyone seems to forget that he kind of stabbed us in the back. So
sort of did.
Yeah.
I threw out RDM.
Yeah. Yep. So Di Matteo, who previously led your Chelsea club to Champions League glory. So he's
after picking up the pieces from AVB.
Yeah, after picking it up from AVB. So there's history there. Maybe
he was at least with the club at the time. I believe he was the first team's coach at the time.
Right. So AVB was smart not to bring him in again to, just hand him the reins again all over. So that one does seem like it could potentially happen.
Because he's just chilling out.
He's just waiting for a job.
Still paying them.
Yeah, so he's probably content to not work and get paid lots of money.
Sure, but
so,
I don't know. You got to think a guy like that
wants a job.
They want a job. They want to be. I mean, he's a younger guy. He wants to strike when the iron's hot with him.
Yeah.
And that glorious night in Munich is drifting farther and farther into the distance.
So he's got to make something of that sometime soon.
I would say so, yeah.
So maybe he will just pick up where he left off last time. He knows how to take over for AVB.
But I guess this is the main question here with all this. We had lost Steve Clark.
Mm-hmm.
He was sacked.
Martin Yole before him.
Martin Yole. Canio.
Yep.
That lasted really long.
Ian Holloway before him.
Yeah. So are there? There's got to be odds somewhere.
Yeah. So I've got some odds pulled up. These look like they're coming in from either Sky Bet or some anonymous service called Stan James. So I don't know how.
I've never seen that on a jersey.
Never seen it on a jersey, but we'll call him a reputable source.
Uh-huh.
So who would you think is actually at the top? The best odds right now.
Well, I think I said, Chris Hughton. I believe that's who I put on the top.
So they have here Sam Allardyce at 7-4. So West Ham manager.
Yeah.
Not really had a good string of results either.
Sure, but was West Ham expecting to have a good string of anything?
You could say the same of Norwich. So.
Yeah, I guess.
But falling closely behind at 7-2 odds is Chris Hughton. So
okay. Where's AVB on that list?
AVB is sitting fourth at 9-1.
And Jose?
Jose is all the way down at 50-1.
That's shocking.
Yeah.
Paddy Power, everything was about Jose doing something else besides managing Chelsea.
Interesting. So some other managers that you may find interesting to be on this list. Cardiff City manager Malky Mackay is sitting at 6-1, so just ahead of AVB. Followed right behind AVB is David Moyes at 16-1. So I would imagine.
Why did I forget? How can I forget?
Yeah.
Moyes and his.
You would imagine after the weekend's result, those odds have gone down a little bit, so probably not doing as good. And then you get some of the expected ones. Gus Poyet, 20-1. Interestingly enough, Brendan Rodgers sitting at 33-1.
What?
Ahead of someone like Mark Hughes, who's been really poor with Stoke. So.
All right, I think we've beaten this horse to death. Any final words on Tottenham's second Norwich-like defeat this season?
Yeah.
Just letting the goals pour in.
I do think AVB is going to get a little bit more time to right his ship.
He took blame for this, by the way. He did go out and say this is on me. He did
immediately after the game come out and take responsibility for the loss. So there will be no mincing of words by the media this week, hopefully. I'm sure there will be plenty of AVB out stories in the press, especially after his recent spats with the press. But I do think he'll get at least a couple more weeks to save himself.
Sure.
But another bad result will probably see him lose his job.
So if they're still having struggles like these, run of forms like this, where goals are nowhere to be found, they're dropping points left and right, and we're sitting here, it's, Super Bowl just kicked off. It's, second week of February.
Right.
What are we talking about?
If they are in this run of form, we will definitely have a new manager at that point.
Okay, all right.
So, I think that will be inevitable. The club has spent way too much.
The other big thing going on this weekend, or this past week, of course, Champions League, final match day 6, wrapping up the group stages. We now know our 16 teams. Our final 8 were brought into the fold.
Yep.
During the midweek. Bayer Leverkusen, they get the 1-0 win over Real Sociedad. That's kind of the one team that was going to come out of that.
Yep.
It was the group that United ran away with. Although Leverkusen it advances, yet you look at United, the two matches they did the best in the entire group stage were the two against Leverkusen.
Right.
Same thing with Chelsea. Their best two matches in the group stages were the 2-3-0 victories over Schalke, who is also still advancing.
So it looks like the English team should be dominating the German ones.
Well, all four English sides and all four German sides
did
make
progress.
It on. Olympiacos, they get through.
Mm-hmm.
Galatasaray, this was a crazy one. A match originally was supposed to be on Tuesday, got called due to just an insane snowstorm happening in Istanbul.
Yeah, so it looked like a snowstorm, but it was actually a hailstorm.
You got me. It was hail?
It was hail. So that's why they call the match. We've seen plenty of games,
several inches of hail.
Go into, play through the snow, and we've definitely seen them called for snow as well, but there was literally enough hail on the field that you thought it was snowing. You could see it like bouncing off the players' heads, and they were looking for an excuse to get out of this match once that stuff started falling down.
Sure. Well,
so
it played right into their strategy.
Yeah, it did.
They played early in the day on Wednesday.
They did, and actually defeated Juventus on a very hail-damaged pitch, 1-0, to actually proceed out of the group.
Juventus not making it through, and their brethren didn't make it through either, as Napoli could not score enough against 10-man Arsenal. They get the 2-0 win. They needed a third goal because Dortmund had won.
Right.
They beat Marseille 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
Napoli becomes the first side ever to not make it through group stages but get it 12 points.
Yeah.
That's never happened before.
So, I mean, that group, and we had talked about this being, this was the group of death for sure, and it lived up to that billing. All three teams at the top, both Dortmund, Arsenal, and Napoli, finished on 12 points. Obviously, only goal differential separating them. Arsenal, who everyone was thinking was flying so high, could have potentially found themselves out of the picture as well, depending on how results fell over the weekend or over the week.
Mm-hmm.
But they finished second with Dortmund top of the group, only on goal differential 5-3.
Yeah.
So
craziness
really tight.
Going on.
It was an odd thing to see Napoli really not continue to push for it. They looked really content to just move the ball around in their own half at the end.
It is almost as if they didn't realize that Dortmund were ahead in their match. Maybe they thought that it was still 1-1.
Yeah,
I have no
don't
idea
know
what was going on.
I have no clue. This is something that is kind of a trademark of Benitez's sides, kind of just not doing quite enough.
I mean, they got that second goal on basically what was the last kick.
Yeah. So, interesting, developments out of that group. I'm going to call it now, out of those two Italian sides, one of those two is going to be the team that knocks Spurs out of the Europa League. Because both of them are dropping down.
Way.
Yeah. They'll both be dropping down into the Europa League. One would imagine there'll be some of the seeded sides in that draw as well. So we won't see them right away. But if we manage to advance to the next round, it's going to be one of them.
It does have to be said. During the Olympiacos Anderlecht game, 3-1 final, that one, Sasha Kljestan.
Yeah.
The American.
Getting a goal after he shaved off that hideous mustache that he had been rocking for a while.
So he gets a goal. They obviously don't advance, but another hideous mustache, Tremaine Jones. He is in the knockout rounds.
Yes, he is, as Schalke managed to finish second in their group behind Chelsea.
Mm-hmm. Chelsea, once again, just skating by.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they
mailing it in.
Oh.
Jose doing Jose stuff in the Champions League. So it's where he works his magic.
I mean, based off of group performance, if I'm anybody in the runner-up side of this bracket here, before the draw happens, I think Chelsea is who I want. Because they really didn't do much.
No, I mean, they did kind of just stumble through their group.
Because I think, honestly, I think right now for Jose, his goal is just the Premier League title. I mean, that is his main focus.
He does seem to really, really want the Premier League title.
He wants it.
for his own purposes and ego. I mean, that's something he's shooting for.
And this is a very, I think this, maybe he's thinking this year is a lot more doable. I mean, United's not what they are.
Mm-hmm. A lot of other good teams beating up on one another.
Yeah.
Opportunities to win points.
Yeah, cannibalism up top.
Yeah, so that would be a good one to pull. You know, there are a lot of another set of dumbasses out there that were kind of calling for, I would want to have Atletico Madrid. I don't know if anyone's not been paying attention to them
really
this year.
Good.
They are phenomenal. They have probably one of the brightest attackers in Europe in the moment with Diego Costa.
Mm-hmm.
The now Spanish Brazilian who has decided he's going to be playing for the Spanish national team. But they are a really good team with a Chelsea loanee in goal in Courtois.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Courtois, who's kind of wants Chelsea to figure out what they're doing with him.
Yeah, he came out this week and said publicly that you guys either need to bring him in and keep him at Chelsea or actually sell him off.
Which, honestly, this being said during a time where Czech he's been showing his age.
Yeah.
Let's just say it that way.
So I would imagine he's probably going to be given an opportunity to fight for a spot in the summer.
I mean, if you're Jose, you'd be an idiot not to let that happen.
Well, you would imagine.
But then again, we're talking about Jose.
And whether he's even going to be there. So we go back to those odds and check.
Yeah. So it goes as followed. The winners of their groups: United, Madrid, PSG, Bayern Munich, Chelsea, Dortmund, Atletico Madrid, and Barcelona.
Mm-hmm.
Bayer Leverkusen, Galatasaray, Olympiacos, Man City, Schalke, Arsenal, Zenit, and AC Milan. Those were the other two that sealed the deal over the week.
Right.
Those are the runners-up, so obviously they will now be paired up. You can't be paired up with someone from your own country or from your own group.
Right.
So if you're looking at Chelsea, they're looking at either Leverkusen, Galatasaray, Olympiacos, Zenit, or AC Milan.
Yeah. I would like to, if I were Chelsea, probably, or anyone for that matter, avoid Zenit just because of the travel that's involved, going all the way out to Russia, playing in cold conditions. Another team that I would really like to avoid, obviously Chelsea don't have this to worry about, but Man City,
in
clearly,
the runner-up group.
In the runner-up group, another team that if they had just realized if they'd gotten one more goal, and this is something that
how desperately do I want Barcelona and Man City to be paired up, though?
That would be awesome.
Obviously, if you're listening to this, you already know who got paired up because it's happening in about 12 hours.
Right.
From when we're talking. So.
Yeah, so you guys already know what's happening, and you're probably saying, well, that's not how it played out.
I mean, as always, though, some just potential for some just very tasty matchups.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about 16 of the 16 best teams in the world, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, there were a couple we could substitute in where we'd say maybe they deserve to be in.
AC Milan's not been amazing this year domestically.
And this, it's odd. We talked earlier about how Napoli and Juve both failed. I just wrote a piece on the blog, so I won't spend too much time talking about this because I want you to go read it. Plug. But there was a lot of hype about Serie A this season. And how they were getting big-name players, attracting them back to the league. They were actively choosing them over going to some other teams.
Do you think that was kind of the PR machine trying to put the recent troubled history of the league behind them quickly?
Yeah, I think that could be part of it.
Push that to the back pages? But
there were some legitimate big-name players heading there. Mario Balotelli returned to Italy this year. And, Fernando Llorente, a fabulous Spanish forward, went to Juve, and Carlos Tevez also went to Juve, so it kind of reformed attack there. There were a lot of big names that made the move over to Italy, and maybe unsurprisingly or surprisingly, they've not done as well in the Champions League this year. So it's kind of an odd point seeing Milan, the one team that's kind of struggling domestically, being the only Italian representative. So
important question out of this. Carlos Tevez, Luis Suarez, which set of teeth would you have if you had to have them? Suarez looks like he has 60 teeth.
He's like a shark. Like when one falls out, another one quickly replaces it.
As Tevez looks like his mouth is made up entirely of what I believe is referred to as eye teeth, the kind of fang-like teeth that everyone kind of has on the top.
Right.
Kind of, directly under your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and his entire mouth is made up of that.
Yeah, so, clearly I'd be more afraid of Suarez just because of his propensity to biting. So, but I get what you're saying. Maybe it's a South American thing.
Sure. Everyone makes fun of the Brits for their teeth.
Yeah, it's true.
Here we are talking about two South Americans.
Two South Americans with a set of fangs.
I would kind of just quickly before we move on here, if you're a runner-up, obviously it's Munich who you don't want.
Yeah,
you got a puncher's chance with everybody else, especially with Messi and Ronaldo on the shelf for the two big Spanish clubs. Not sure if that'll go into February, but
yeah, you have to remember there is a bit of a layoff, and we could see both of those players. Ronaldo's already been back a little bit.
Messi could be close though.
But Messi could be close, so it may be the second leg before we see him back in. But you're right. There are a couple teams that you feel like you might have a shot against. Bayern obviously are terrifying, but City proved that you can win at the Allianz Arena. I don't think anyone would have expected them to go in saying they were going to score 3 goals.
So I will admittedly say Chelsea is the team you want from the winner's side.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the other team you want? They played so well in group stages, but again, United is a 8th place team in domestically right now.
Yep. So that was definitely going to be the other team that I would make mention of.
Sure.
And a team that all the second place ones would have been aiming for. So odd that we're seeing 2 English sides.
And because now we're in the knockout stages, this is when the pressure's really. These matches they had a peach of a draw for their group. These matches now, Moyes got to be on his toes for these.
Yeah, he
pretty much got to just sit there and just doodle on an iPad.
Right.
For these group matches.
This is uncharted territory for him. He's never been in this kind of pressure cooker environment as far as the top teams in Europe. So we're going to see what David Moyes is really capable of, and maybe he's been putting all of his eggs into this basket. It's kind of looked that way, at least on results alone. So it's going to be an interesting draw. I'm really intrigued to see where they end up and how things shift out because it's going to be a fun tournament.
Another tournament that's really not fun at all, the Capital One Cup.
Yeah, let's talk about some of these
The Capital One Cup.
The Capital One Cup.
Tuesday sees Leicester City and Man City going at it. Again, not two juggernauts. It's just a very one-sided affair.
Yeah, you would expect City are going to win out here, but they did lose to Wigan in the FA Cup final last year. So
that's true.
You never know.
Sunderland, Chelsea. Sunderland almost got the best of Chelsea about a week ago.
Yeah, so maybe they'll find more success.
And then Stoke v. United on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, it's odd how we just aren't that excited about watching United anymore.
And your boys got West Ham.
So we've struggled against them this year. Losing 3-0 to them earlier in the season.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so a chance to exercise some demons, maybe an opportunity for AVB to save his neck. But, hey, it's a chance at a trophy. May find ourselves in a semifinal.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Capital One.
Capital One Cup. Everyone stay tuned. Yeah,
it's on beIN Sport.
Woo!
So, there's that.
Look forward to crappy television production.
Before we get to questions, because I know we have some listener questions, there was a bit of action in the MLS. We talked about the MLS hot stove.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we hit some of those stories? Let's start locally here. The Columbus Crew making a trade that involved probably a player that will one day have his up in the Ring of Honor or whatever.
Yeah. Retired jersey.
Do they have like an official anything there? Some people have the Ring of Honor. Some people it's just the jersey.
I'm trying to think if it's. I'm pretty sure it's retired jersey numbers because they have a few of them out there. So this was definitely a move that shocked and raised a few eyebrows for a lot of Crew fans, and it is the very last member of the Crew's MLS Cup winning side and captain of the team, Chad Marshall, traded away to the Seattle Sounders, joining former Crew manager Siggy Schmidt and 4 other players that actually played for that Crew side. So huge news. I mean, a lot of Crew fans were up in revolt afterward. This is a team that's clearly been in rebuilding mode, and it seemed a little odd.
And you're talking about a guy who's been extremely important to this club for, how long now?
Yeah, he was a one-club guy, had talked about potentially wanting to stay with the Crew his entire career. So it's definitely a blow to see Chad go. I mean, he's been a great player even for them throughout the years, and a move that definitely puzzled a lot of Crew fans. So let's be upfront about it. This was absolutely a cap-clearing move for the Crew.
Cap-clearing move, and you're moving a guy who is getting up there in age.
Yep.
And who has had a pretty regular string of injuries going right now.
Right.
I mean, he's not the healthiest of horses out there.
No, he's not. I mean, he's definitely got a bit of a injury history. Track record isn't exactly the healthiest of them out there. So we weren't really going to get a lot of return on investment that we had in Chad unless we made this move now. So they did get draft picks and allocation money for him. So hopefully they'll be able to parlay that into some decent talent that will actually help the team moving forward.
I mean, it's not to make kind of a weird comparison here, but it is literally like owning a car that you had for a long time. You have 2 options. You can sell it for the little bit it's still worth, or you can literally drive it into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And when you drive it into the ground, you will literally be left with nothing in return.
Right.
It just goes away. It's just no longer a car that has any redeeming value.
And that's a great analogy for what was going on with Chad Marshall. As awesome of a car as he's been for the Crew to drive around on for the last few years.
A lot of miles on that tire.
There are a lot of miles on those tires. So maybe a good move for them. Definitely frees up a lot of cap space for them to make a couple big signings potentially. A few other names did filter in. Daniel Palladini, a defensive midfielder that's been playing for the Chicago Fire the last few years, making the jump over from the rivals. And he came in actually right before the MLS reentry draft, where we did see some kind of interesting movements from the 68 players that were named by MLS the day before.
Well, that kind of brings us to the other kind of big story is we did have this reentry draft that this year, there were some names.
Yeah, there were a lot of big names. You could actually make a pretty competitive MLS side out of the names that are on the list. People like Dwayne De Rosario, who's former league MVP, sitting on there by DC United, who put them up. A couple other players that were kind of big
Kenny
out there.
Cooper?
Yeah, Kenny Cooper from the FC Dallas was on the list. Steve Zakuani, probably more famous for his leg break than he is for much anything else. But he's actually a really talented player, and if he can stay fit, he was snapped up by Portland.
Yeah, he was kind of the biggest move of that. Of that draft.
Other players that were kind of big names that were out there. Bobby Boswell, who's kind of been around the national team setup for a little while, and so there were a lot of big names that are out there. Fan pod favorite even Chris Rolfe, the local guy, was on the list for Chicago. So there were a lot of really good players that were in this, and the Crew had the opportunity to make a big move for it. There is going to be a second round of re-entry draft to go this week, where you can offer even less for the players this time around. So for those of you who are kind of confused, this is an odd process. Not many leagues have things quite like the re-entry draft.
I think there was, when you talk about Crew fans, there was a lot of people that were like, oh, wait, why didn't we do anything right there?
Right.
What was that crap?
Right. So basically, here's how the re-entry draft works. MLS players, the way their league contracts are structured, generally have salaries that increase on a year-on-year basis.
Sure.
And teams will have options to pick up normally the last year or two on a player's contract. And if they don't want to pick up that option on that last year of the contract, they will put a player on the re-entry draft list. So what does that mean? That means that in a decreasing order from your MLS finish for the year, so last picks first, each team will then go through and have the opportunity to sign that player for less money than what their current contract is. So it's an opportunity for MLS player or MLS clubs to snatch up a player and potentially get them for a little bit cheaper than what their contract currently stipulates. So the first round through is always a little bit cagey. Either it's a really good player that's getting snapped up, and we saw Portland trade a player so they could get the second pick in the draft just so they could sign Zach Wani. So it is an example of a way for a team to make a big signing.
Yeah. Cascadia rival.
Yeah, Cascadia rival, snapping them up from Seattle probably stung a little bit for a few Seattle fans.
I'd imagine.
And it's definitely a move that could pay off. So maybe we'll see that work out. But then you see, players like Kenny Cooper completely skipped over because people don't want to deal with that much salary. I mean, even if you negotiate them down on this round, and you can only go down so much in this round, and then the second round you can go down even more.
So what you're saying is basically the second round
is where you tend to see a little bit more action.
We're going to probably see some more names get snatched up.
Yeah.
Possibly, locally, the Crew could possibly, was when they could make their move.
Yeah, Greg Berhalter, the new coach of the Crew, did mention that he was looking at potentially making some moves, and they saw the reentry draft as a potential source for getting some good players. Now, Palladini was originally on that list, but they did make a deal outside of the actual draft to get him moved over. So, maybe some action to come. Just definitely stay tuned there.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting stuff.
Let's get to those questions.
Yeah.
Oh, but first, I almost forgot this. And I didn't want to bring it up when we were talking about the Liverpool-Tottenham match.
Oh, kind of you.
How painful it is.
Fresh wounds, man.
For the second week in a row, we have our Luis Suarez is greater than list.
Oh, great.
Clubs with less goals than Luis Suarez. Now, he had the brace today. He was also awarded a second goal from that West Ham match. The panel went back, reviewed it, and said, that's your goal. He now sits at 17 league goals. This is a guy who didn't get to start the season on time, remember?
Right.
He showed up in mid-September.
Yep, so he took the first, 4 or 5 games off.
Mm-hmm.
Now has 17 goals in 11 matches.
Yeah. The following teams have less than him. Crystal Palace.
Predictable.
11 goals. Cardiff, 12 goals.
Okay.
Sunderland, 12 goals.
Yeah, okay.
Hull City, 13 goals.
See, these are all sides that you would expect.
West Ham, 13 goals.
Okay.
Fulham, 15 goals.
Right.
Stoke, unless they're playing Chelsea, they're really not scoring much.
Yeah, that's not something they do.
15 goals.
Okay.
Norwich, talked about possible problems that they have coming.
Yeah, okay.
15 goals.
Yeah, so these are all relegation candidates. That makes sense.
Yeah, all 3 teams are currently in those bottom slots, yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like you're building up to something here.
Tottenham.
Oh.
15 goals.
Well, shit.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 clubs. Nearly half the league has less goals than Suarez. If we were going by goals,
Suarez would be sitting middle table.
Suarez is a mid-table club.
Yeah. Interesting. And completely embarrassing.
It is.
Yeah.
That's why I bring it up.
Okay.
All right. Our listener questions tweeted to us.
Yeah. So we had a few today that were tweeted in. Again, if you have any questions for us, you can tweet them at either Jeremy or myself. We can also use the hashtag WSOTPpod. So 2 P's there. Don't forget the second one. To actually send us in your questions, you can, of course, send them to Gmail, wrongsideofthepond@gmail.com as well. But we did have a few sent in today. A lot of them, predictably, after I put this out after my rough day, were aimed at me and belittling me and my opportunity with Spurs really just being abysmal. So we had questions like, what the fuck is wrong with Tottenham? We've already talked about that, so I'm not going to rehash that again. Yeah. What were your thoughts about the 10-year-old girl, the mascot, snubbing Suarez, the handshake prior to the match?
I missed that one.
Yeah. So if you didn't see this, it was just before the match. My parents were actually in today to celebrate Christmas, so they came in to to celebrate Christmas with my wife and I a little bit early.
Cool.
And my dad was actually the one who caught this when we rewound it back to see it. While the mascots were going through for the pregame handshake, Luis Suarez, second in line for Liverpool, this little girl, second in line for Tottenham, reaches out like she's going to shake his hand, pulls it back, and gives it the old wave of the fingers and stuck her tongue out at him, which was awesome.
So British of
Yeah,
them.
now, that definitely very British. She also held up 5 fingers, so it was like she knew that Spurs would be conceding 5, so I'm going to blame it all on her now. So that's my thoughts on that little girl.
The kid from The Omen or something?
Yeah, she was my hero at the start of the game. The sad part was that was the highlight of that match for me, and it was pretty much all downhill. So those are my current thoughts on her.
We need to have a second list called people who have snubbed Suarez in the handshaking line.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's just as lengthy as clubs with less goals.
Just about. Do you think that more people have snubbed Suarez in line now or John Terry? They've got to be neck and neck.
I mean, John Terry, you're talking about 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
Ferdinand boys.
Yep.
And then Wayne Bridge.
Wayne Bridge definitely will not shake his hand.
Wayne Bridge isn't playing in the Premier League right now.
No, he's not.
He's not of Premier League caliber, so he's not a problem.
Okay. So either way, it's a lengthy list for either individual.
Yeah, it's not something you want to be known for.
Yeah. So this one came in from Sean Maislin, or Maislin on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
This is definitely one that for both of us.
Okay.
In your opinion, what makes a match a quality match? Is it a bunch of goals, crowd involvement, flamboyant mascots, anything along those lines? So I'll let you answer that one first.
I think if I'm sitting down let's say I'm a neutral,
okay.
I don't have a dog in the fight,
no
skin
stake
in the game, yeah.
Right?
I want there to be thrill and suspense.
Right.
I want there to be doubt of who will finish on top till as late as possible.
So you don't mind if there aren't a lot of goals?
No, not really. I mean, as long as it is a spirited 2 sides fighting for 3 points.
Right.
I mean, if it's a tight match, but it's just 2 teams just sleepwalking,
right,
that's no good. I want end-to-end action. I want at least 2 substantial spurts of end-to-end action throughout the match. Generally something towards the end, if it's really close. Maybe something towards near first half.
Right. So
first half.
You don't want to see a match that's completely locked down in midfield. There really aren't any opportunities. Right. I mean, we can have goalless draws that can be absolutely thrilling.
I mean, just think, as a neutral, what puts you on the edge of your seat?
Opportunities on goal. They don't necessarily have to go in, but people actually going for goal. I always try to explain this to people who don't watch soccer. This is like my go-to for them. Is sometimes soccer is about the chess match and watching the 2 teams try to unlock one another and seeing how they will test certain areas of the field. It's almost like velociraptors in Jurassic Park, how they would systematically test areas of the fence to see if there was a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not going to be my last Jurassic Park reference because that was classic.
Nor should it be.
No. But it's fun sometimes watching teams try to figure out where the weak point is. For Tottenham today, it was the entire left side of our defense. But anyway, that can be a really...
Way to narrow it down.
Yeah, to really narrow it down. That can be a really interesting aspect to it. So I think you're right. A game where 2 teams are legitimately going for the win and opportunities are happening, and shoot, some off-field drama can even make a match a little bit more interesting. So
yeah, there's that, and obviously to add to the off-field thing, the more at stake, the better. Obviously,
yes.
If we're talking, we're about ready to get into the knockout stages of Champions League. Right there, I mean that's added pressure on the players, added intensity, added drama. That's what you want.
Yep.
You want narrative.
Mm-hmm.
You want good pace of play.
Yep.
And you want to be left hanging till the very last breath.
Yeah, we don't want to. Drubbings
That's
just
the
aren't
perfect
fun.
Match.
Yeah, drubbings aren't fun. Either it gets boring at the end because one team has complete control, or you just feel bad for the team on the beating end, and maybe I'm feeling a little bit more sympathetic to teams that are on the receiving end of beatings.
You can relate to those.
I can. I can. So, Sean, thanks for the question. I think that was a great one.
That is a good question because we talked about it a couple weeks ago that there is a discrepancy in what us Americans like out of our sports and what the Brits and probably most of Europe want out of a football match.
Right.
They want this tactically beautiful visual poetry.
Right.
Where we want excitement, action, drama. Give us goals. Give us a highlight.
Give me goals or give me death. I think that
you got death today.
Yeah, I got death today. We rarely get goals at Tottenham. So.
Any other questions? Is that it?
That was it for this week. So definitely make sure you send more of those in. Use that hashtag WSOTPpod. We'll answer them up.
Next week, big matches. Saturday, sleeping. They all suck.
Okay.
Just kidding. Watch them all.
Okay.
Sunday, Southampton, Tottenham.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we talk about Southampton kind of slipping, but still a formidable squad.
Yeah, but both are sides that are struggling for goals at the moment.
Yeah, I would say, we talked about Southampton haven't won in their last 5 matches.
Mm-hmm.
Tottenham, we could drone on for days about their need to get a win.
Yeah, so they are teams that need results as well.
And then Monday, 3 p.m., under the lights.
Ooh.
Arsenal, Chelsea face off. Arsenal wins. Obviously, they retain top of the table. Chelsea wins. They will likely share top of the table because I would imagine Liverpool is going to beat whatever schlub they're playing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, huge implications as far as the top of the table concerns. The winner will be in first place.
Yep.
Not a whole lot of matches you can say that.
No. So, I mean, it's definitely the match of the round to look forward to. But do keep in mind, there are a lot of games coming up over the next couple weeks.
Yeah,
so,
Boxing Day stuff. Don't forget that. You're going to get that Christmas hangover.
Yeah, don't.
Do not forget Boxing Day.
It's like England's Thanksgiving, where everyone is literally looking forward to a full smattering of football matches.
The stores are going to be packed with people returning crap Thursday morning anyways.
So stay in.
Watch some matches.
Watch some Premier League.
Go out later.
Yeah, it'll be definitely worth your while.
Got that. We have, as we mentioned, Capital One Cup Tuesday and Wednesday, the quarterfinals. beIN Sport. Outside of that, I guess next week is our Christmas special.
Yeah. So look forward to that. I'll come dressed only in.
I already brought the Christmas spirit.
That's true. You did. We did definitely have some Christmas spirit here. Thank you, sir. Needed that one today. Just a quick drop as well. There are 2 brand new shirts. They're going to be out on the wrong side of the pawn shop this week. So if you're looking for a gift that will most likely come in after Christmas for any of those people you forgot to buy something for.
This is a make good.
Yeah, this is a make good. I promise I bought you something. Here's the email I can show you.
Their website said the product didn't come out till.
Yeah.
No. I knew a guy.
Yeah. So
had it all along.
I'd love to say that if you give me a special email in that I may be able to grease the wheels for you, but it seems like the production line is going to be a little bit behind schedule. But either way,
at the mercy of the printers.
Yes, it is at the mercy of the printers. But there are 2 brand new designs you should keep an eye out for. One for the foosball fans, literally the foosball. We're not talking about Adam Sandler's mom from The Waterboy. And then another one for the new Indy 11. So
we got to get them on the horn.
Yeah,
soon.
We'll have to work on that.
We good people over there. Obviously close for us here in Cincinnati. We're like 90 minutes away from downtown Indy.
Right.
Downtown Indy also much preferable downtown than the one we currently live in.
Yeah, we're catching up.
We're getting there.
But
they already are there.
Yeah, that's true.
That's easy.
It's something to shoot towards.
It is.
So
they hosted a Super Bowl.
That's true.
That's not happening for us.
No, it's definitely not.
That's more of a logistics thing. All right, that's it for us. We will see you next week. We might have that one up. That might be a Christmas Eve affair, as we may try to hold off before that Arsenal-Chelsea match
Right.
on the 23rd.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, we'll look forward to see what happens with Bob Bradley.
Yeah, that could shift
the West
out.
Brom deal.
Keep your eye on the transfer rumors to really start picking up here in the coming weeks.
We're 2 weeks away from that.
2 weeks away from the window opening up, so watch those back pages. They'll be full of shit.
They already are.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, people. Have a good one.
See you guys.
Get that fat tire.